Hi, my name is Nomalanga Mhlauli-Moses, and I am the founder of theblackhomeschool.com. Um, Today I want to answer a question that comes up a lot, and I think that it comes up a lot because we're at a stage where homeschooling is something that really needs to be at the forefront of the conversations that we're having about black kids and education. But there's a lot of people who don't know enough about it to even begin to consider it as an option for what we see going on in the public school system, and they don't see homeschooling as an option or a solution. So I want to answer a question that comes up a lot. The question that obviously comes up a lot when you talk about homeschooling, people say, what about socialization? I've answered that question, and just to quickly answer it again, which is not what this video is about, but just, I'll humor those who may have not heard me answer it. Socialization is the least of your worries, I think, when it comes to homeschooling, if you do it right. A lot of homeschoolers are not homeschooling on their own. They're part of a group of homeschoolers, so the kids are socialized in many ways. There's lots of activities, there's co-ops, there's church, there's family. There's so much that goes into a homeschool environment or a homeschool movement. So really the question of socialization still, I feel, is not really a fair one. It's just an indication that a person hasn't done enough research or has really looked into homeschooling enough, because if you did, then you wouldn't ask the question about socialization. So moving on from socialization, the other question that I'm hearing a lot and comes up a lot when I talk about homeschooling or when I share information about homeschooling or suggest it as a solution when parents feel that the public school system is not serving their children well, is the question of the parents saying, what if I'm unqualified? Or sometimes it's a mean comment of somebody saying, what if these ratchet mothers, they can't be homeschooling their kids, they can't even take care of their kids, and so on. But I want to answer the question on a serious note and talk about what it means to be qualified or unqualified. I can share quite honestly that I have a master's degree in teaching, but I got that degree when I had an eye out for becoming a college professor, which I eventually did do. But I was prepared to teach adults, not small children. And I spent a bulk of my career not actually teaching, but actually working in various management positions. And then I taught at the college level about management, and more specifically in the hospitality industry. But the point that I'm making by saying all of this is saying that even though I looked at myself as an educator, I was not an educator of small children. And I felt very, very, very inadequate when I thought about homeschooling, because I felt like I didn't have a degree in early childhood education. I didn't have a degree in elementary education or any of that. The kind of degrees or the kind of preparation that it took to teach young children. But I also look back, and I think I may have shared this before on another platform. I also look back. I have 3 kids now. My oldest is going to be 10 soon. The next one is 7, and then I have a little baby who's 2 months old. What I remember 10 years ago is when I had my first kid. Because I really felt inadequate as a mother. I thought, how am I ever going to raise a kid? I have no idea how to do this. But the truth is, being a mother, there's some things that are ingrained in you. They come naturally. You learn as you go along, and you just have to trust yourself. And this is the approach that I kind of took towards homeschooling, which is what other mothers who had been homeschooling before I started homeschooling encouraged me to do. They just said, trust yourself. You're that child's mother. Why would you trust a teacher to do right by your kid more than you trust yourself? Granted, the teacher may have the degree or whatever, but the teacher doesn't have that love and care necessarily that you have as a mother. So trust yourself. So the first thing that I want to say about teaching your kids is, number one, it's not necessarily about teaching, it's more about facilitating learning. So you don't have to look at yourself as a teacher, you have to be a facilitator. So your kids are going to learn, and you're going to facilitate that learning. And there are many ways in which you can facilitate learning, especially now in the age of technology. There's many resources online, offline libraries, there's other people, there's tutors, there's family members. If you just open your mind, open your eyes and your ears, and you think about it as, I'm not the teacher necessarily, but I'm a person who's going to facilitate my children's learning. I'm going to hold them accountable. I'm going to keep them focused, disciplined, and so on. But don't look at yourself necessarily as their one and only teacher. It wouldn't be fair if that's what you did, because children have access in schools to various teachers and various perspectives. So you have to be the facilitator of various perspectives and various learning tools. The second thing is, as I mentioned, is if you're a mother or even a father, just understand that taking care of a child is something that should come naturally. And if it doesn't come naturally, then you're not equipped to be a parent any more than you're equipped to be a homeschooler. But it should come naturally. You care about your kid, and you're going to make decisions. You're going to make mistakes. That's okay. The same thing goes with parenting. So you're going to make mistakes with homeschooling, but you can correct yourself and keep going. And as long as you have the right attitude and you're committed and you keep your kids on track, you'll be fine. You really will be fine. And you have to keep reminding yourself that. It's not going to be perfect. You're going to miss some things. But guess what? The public school system misses things too. Teachers make mistakes too. So just look at it that way as, it may not be easy. I may miss some things. I may do it wrong sometimes. But the bottom line is I care. I'm invested and I'm determined to do this, and you'll do fine. The third thing, again, that I mentioned is you can look into co-ops. Co-ops are basically homeschooling parents who decide to use each other. I've seen or I've heard of co-ops where there might be one parent who's a math enthusiast or is good at math or loves it or whatever, and teaches math to all the other kids, and then maybe a science and English or whatever, and you kind of just share and teach each other's kids. That's one way that a co-op works, but it could work in many different ways. You can have co-ops that do field trips together. You can do so many things by just cooperating with other parents and who also want to do what's best for their kids in terms of homeschooling, and you just make it work. So the easiest thing to do is just reach out on Facebook, since we use Facebook a lot. Do meetups, go to church, go to school, and you might find that you can actually have co-op with the parents that are transitioning into homeschooling or are supplementing with homeschooling. There's so many different ways that you can do co-ops. The next thing is online schools, videos, groups. There's so many resources out there, and this is something that I realized years ago when I decided to look into homeschooling. There's so much out there. There's boxed curriculums, there's online schools, and YouTube is full of information, full of tutorials. Of course, you have to vet them and you make sure that they're credible before you give them to your kids, but there's so much out there that you really can't say, I don't know what to do, because there's even courses and guides and ebooks and things that have been written by homeschooling mothers. I personally have a course on teachable.com. You can find it at theblackHomeschoolGuide.com. TheblackHomeschoolGuide.com is basically a series of lectures where I share my homeschooling journey, and I share information about how parents can transition their kids from public school or maybe even private school into homeschooling, the things that you need to think about before you get into it, and the things that you need to keep doing. And I personally live in a state, Massachusetts, which is one of the top 3 strictest states in terms of homeschooling regulation. So if you can survive homeschooling in Massachusetts, you could probably survive homeschooling in any other states in the United States. Okay, so the next thing is textbooks. A lot of times people talk about the cost of homeschooling. I personally prepare well ahead of time for my kids' curriculum so that I'm getting their books together. The textbooks can be the most expensive part of homeschooling, but one of the things that I did the very, very first year that I homeschooled was I was nervous about whether I was doing it right or whether the kids had all the textbook they needed. So what I did was I bought a boxed set. It costs quite a bit of money. At the time, I had been working, so I could afford it. I can still probably afford it now, but I don't have to. And the point I'm making is the cost shouldn't be an issue. So what I did was, after I got the box set, the following year, all I did was get the next year. So my daughter was I think in the second grade when we started, or the first grade. So if I bought a box set and it was all for first grade, they're textbooks. So the textbook naturally has the same textbook for the second grade and so on. So all you have to do is search for those books. You can find them on Amazon. You can go to the bookstore yourself. And check out what different textbooks there are that are not as expensive but still offer the same information. If you're trying to do the Common Core, which I'm not doing, you can actually look for books that follow Common Core. There's so much that you can do if you prepare ahead of time. So a suggestion that I will make again is I use Amazon.com. I can get books that cost $30, $40, sometimes $50 for as little as $1. Actually, the cost ends up being to send the book, which I think is about $4. So you can get for $5 a book that would cost upwards of $50. So the main thing is just to prepare ahead of time. Get yourself prepared ahead of time. So there it is, guys. Don't let this self-defeating thought of I'm unqualified be the only hurdle that's between you and homeschooling your kids. And as I say about homeschooling all the time, if you take your kids out of school, you homeschool them, and then you realize, wow, I'm just totally screwing this up, or I'm not liking this, or my kids hate it, or this is just not for me, it's not for us. What you can do is you can put your kids right back in school. There's no law, there's no rule that says that you can't put your kids back in school. Believe me, I've researched it. Even if it's the middle of the school year, as long as they're in that school district, you can put them in that school. So there's nothing stopping you from putting your kids back. And then the last thing that I want to share is, and I share this often, is that one of the things that I never ever thought of, maybe even just 5 years ago, was that I would be a homeschooler. It never occurred to me. I got married 11 years ago. I knew I was going to have kids. I knew I wanted a family. I knew I wanted a husband, but homeschooling wasn't part of that picture. So I just want to reassure parents who are really having doubts and don't think they can do it. I honestly didn't think I could do it either, but here I am doing it because this is what I decided was the best, would create the best outcome for my kids and for their education. And guys, it's not because I'm religious. It's not just because of the violence in schools. It's not just because of bullying or whatever the reasons people cite. A large part of it for me was miseducation. Kids are not being adequately educated, especially Black kids, especially African kids. When you talk about who they are and where they come from, the school systems are not serving them well. And then, of course, you have other things like racism, you have your religious beliefs or whatever it is. So you as a parent can choose the direction of your kids' education. And if you have that doubt in your mind of, am I unqualified? Believe me, every parent, every good parent has that thought at least once. And the truth is, for most parents, yes, you are qualified. As long as you have at least a high school diploma, or the equivalent, whatever it is, and you know how to read and you know how to write, you are the best person to facilitate your children's learning, as long as you're committed and you keep at it and you don't give up. So I just want to remind you guys, I do have a course at teachable.com. The link to get the course, to take the course, is theblackHomeschool.com. I'm sorry, theblackHomeschoolGuide.com, and it actually is a guide that I created for parents who are new to homeschooling. So it's theblackHomeschoolGuide.com, and it's at teachable.com, at the Black Business School. And again, my name is Nomalanga Mhlauli-Moses. I'm the founder of theblackHomeschool.com. Thank you for watching.